What do you do when every door seems closed? When you've tried to think your way out, prayed your way out, worked your way out, and still nothing changes. Most people believe that when they don't know what to do, they must do more. They search for another answer, another strategy, another sign. But what if the greatest breakthrough doesn't begin with doing more? What if it begins with becoming different? There comes a moment in every person's life when logic reaches its limit. The mind grows tired, the heart becomes uncertain, and the future appears hidden behind a wall of doubt. Yet it is precisely in that moment that a deeper power becomes available, not through struggle, but through awareness. The outer world is always changing, but the inner world is where every change truly begins. Every achievement, every opportunity, every relationship, and every transformation first exists as a state within consciousness before it appears in physical reality. When you learn to master your inner world, the outer world begins to reflect it. So if today you don't know what to do, perhaps the answer isn't another action. Perhaps the answer is to choose a new state of being. Because the moment you stop identifying with confusion and begin identifying with certainty, life starts responding to a different version of you. In this message, we'll explore 5 timeless principles that can completely change the way you approach uncertainty. If you apply them sincerely, you'll discover that clarity isn't something you chase, it's something you awaken within yourself. Here's the first section in a reflective, inspirational style inspired by the philosophy you requested, while remaining original and not presenting it as the words of any specific person. The moment uncertainty enters your life, the natural instinct is to look outward for answers. You ask more people for advice, watch countless videos, read another book, and hope that someone else has discovered the solution you have been unable to find. It seems reasonable because we have been taught that knowledge exists somewhere outside us, waiting to be found. Yet the more we search externally, the more scattered our minds become. Every opinion competes with another. Every new idea creates another question. Instead of gaining clarity, we often become overwhelmed by possibilities. The truth is that confusion is rarely solved by collecting more information. It is solved by returning to the quiet place within where certainty already exists. When you don't know what to do, your greatest temptation is to react to what your senses are telling you. The circumstances may appear discouraging. The bank account may seem too small. The relationship may appear broken. Opportunities may seem absent. Your eyes convince you that the outer world is the only reality, so naturally you believe you must change it first. But every lasting transformation begins long before anything changes on the outside. It begins with a shift in awareness. Your experience of life is shaped not only by what surrounds you, but by the state of consciousness from which you observe it. When your inner state changes, your perception changes. And when your perception changes, your actions, decisions, and eventually your circumstances begin to reflect that new awareness. Think about moments in your own life when you felt confident. You noticed opportunities that others overlooked. You spoke with greater conviction. You attracted people who responded positively to your energy. Nothing magical happened overnight. What changed first was your inner attitude. The world simply reflected it back to you. The same principle applies during moments of uncertainty. Instead of asking the world to give you confidence, become confident within yourself first. Instead of demanding that life prove everything will work out, choose to believe that it already is. The outer evidence follows the inner conviction, not the other way around. This requires stillness, because the voice of fear is always loud, while the voice of inner knowing is quiet. Fear rushes you. It tells you to make a decision immediately or something terrible will happen. It fills your mind with endless scenarios and keeps you trapped in analysis. Inner wisdom does not compete with fear. It waits patiently until you become quiet enough to hear it. That is why silence is so powerful. Even a few moments spent turning away from distraction and toward your own awareness can reveal insights that hours of worrying never could. Imagine waking up tomorrow without the burden of needing everyone else's approval. Imagine making decisions from a place of peace instead of panic. You would notice that life begins to feel lighter. Your path becomes clearer, not because every obstacle has disappeared, but because your attention is no longer fixed on the obstacles. It is fixed on the person you are choosing to become. The answers you seek have always been closer than you imagined. They are not hidden in distant places or locked inside someone else's opinion. They emerge naturally when you stop searching outside yourself and begin trusting the creative power within your own consciousness. The greatest guidance you will ever receive does not come from the noise of the world. It comes from the quiet certainty that has been waiting inside you all along. One of the greatest mistakes people make during difficult times is becoming completely absorbed by their present circumstances. They study every problem, analyze every setback, and replay every disappointment until it feels impossible to imagine anything different. The mind becomes trapped in a cycle of reacting to what is instead of creating what could be. But the moment you allow your current situation to define your future, you surrender your creative power. The present is only a reflection of past thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions. It is not a permanent sentence. It is simply the visible result of an invisible state that can be changed. When you understand this, you stop fighting your present reality and begin choosing the reality you truly want to experience. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask yourself a different question. What would my life feel like if everything had already worked out? This question shifts your attention from the problem to the solution. It invites your imagination to move beyond the limits of the visible world and enter the reality you desire. Before anything can appear in your life, it must first become real within your own consciousness. Every invention, every achievement, every success began as an unseen possibility held in someone's mind before it became a physical fact. Your own future follows the same principle. It begins with the picture you consistently accept within yourself. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that the challenge you're facing no longer exists. Picture yourself waking up with complete peace of mind. Feel the relief of knowing that everything has unfolded perfectly. Hear the conversations you would have. Notice the confidence in your voice. Sense the gratitude filling your heart. Do not simply think about these things. Experience them as though they are happening now. The more vivid the feeling becomes, the more natural it starts to feel. And when it feels natural, it begins to replace the old story you have been telling yourself. Many people believe this is merely positive thinking, but it is much deeper than that. Positive thinking often attempts to cover fear with encouraging words. Choosing the end means replacing fear entirely with a new inner reality. It is not pretending the problem doesn't exist. It is refusing to allow the problem to become your identity. There is a profound difference between experiencing a challenge and becoming the person who believes they are permanently trapped by it. The first leaves room for transformation. The second keeps you emotionally attached to the very condition you wish to escape. The world around you may not change immediately, and that is where many people lose faith. They return to old habits because they expect instant evidence. But lasting change begins invisibly, just as a seed develops beneath the soil before anyone can see its growth. Your new reality begins forming the moment you consistently accept it inwardly. Every time you choose the fulfilled outcome instead of reacting to appearances, you strengthen that unseen reality. You are training your mind to live from the destination rather than constantly staring at the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Whenever doubt appears, remind yourself that appearances are temporary, but consciousness is creative. Refuse to measure your progress by today's circumstances alone. Measure it by the peace, confidence, and certainty growing within you. The person who continually lives in the feeling of the fulfilled desire naturally begins making different decisions, noticing different opportunities, speaking with greater confidence, and responding to life from a completely different state of mind. What once seemed impossible gradually becomes inevitable because your inner world has already accepted it as true. So, when you don't know what to do, don't spend your energy wrestling with the present. Lift your attention beyond it. See the end you desire. Feel the joy of its completion. Let your imagination become more convincing than your fears. The moment you stop living from the problem and start living from the fulfilled outcome, you awaken a power that quietly reshapes your entire experience. Your future is not created by the circumstances you resist. It is created by the reality you choose to embrace within. Once you have chosen the reality you wish to experience, the next step is not to force it into existence, but to remain faithful to the feeling of its fulfillment. This is where most people turn away from their own creative power. They begin with enthusiasm, imagining the life they desire and feeling inspired for a moment. But then they look at their circumstances, see that nothing appears to have changed, and immediately return to doubt. They convince themselves that it is not working, that they have failed, or that perhaps their desire is too big. What they fail to realize is that the greatest transformations are never sustained by a single moment of belief. They are sustained by persistence. Not persistence in struggling against life, but persistence in remaining loyal to the inner feeling that your desire is already yours. The world constantly invites you to react to appearances. Every delay whispers that nothing is happening. Every obstacle tries to persuade you that your vision is unrealistic. Every setback attempts to pull you back into the familiar identity of worry and limitation. But the moment you allow external conditions to determine your inner state, you surrender your ability to create. Instead of leading your life from within, you become a follower of circumstances. Real power begins when your inner conviction remains unchanged, even while the outer world appears to tell a different story. This quiet consistency is far stronger than frantic effort because it is rooted in certainty rather than fear. Think about someone who knows the sun will rise tomorrow. They do not spend the night worrying whether morning will arrive. They rest peacefully because the outcome feels certain. In the same way, when you truly accept your desired reality within yourself, you stop living in anxious anticipation. You stop asking every day whether it is coming. Instead, you begin living as someone who already knows. That confidence changes the way you think, speak, and respond to life. You become calmer because your faith is no longer dependent on immediate evidence. Your peace comes from within, and nothing outside can easily disturb it. This does not mean you ignore challenges or pretend difficulties never exist. It means you refuse to let those difficulties define your identity. There will still be moments when fear knocks at the door. Doubt may return unexpectedly. Old habits of thinking may try to reclaim your attention. When that happens, do not criticize yourself or assume you have lost all progress. Simply return to the feeling you chose in the beginning. Return to the certainty, the gratitude, the confidence, or the peace that belongs to the version of yourself who already has what you desire. Every return strengthens your new state of consciousness. Each time you choose faith over fear, you weaken the influence of your old assumptions. Many people believe success belongs to those who work the hardest, struggle the most, or never stop pushing. Yet some of the greatest breakthroughs occur when people finally stop fighting and begin trusting. Struggle often comes from believing you must force life to obey your will. But true transformation comes from aligning yourself with the reality you have already accepted inwardly. When your thoughts, emotions, and expectations move together in harmony, your actions become natural instead of desperate. You no longer chase opportunities with anxiety. You recognize them with confidence. You no longer beg life to change. You expect it to reflect the change that has already taken place within you. There is a remarkable difference between waiting and expecting. Waiting carries uncertainty. It quietly asks, will this ever happen? Expecting carries confidence. It says, I know it is unfolding, even if I cannot yet see it. One drains your energy while the other fills you with quiet assurance. Choose expectation. Let it become the atmosphere of your mind. Walk through your days with the calm confidence of someone whose future has already been settled. This inner attitude influences every conversation, every decision, and every opportunity that comes your way. So, when you don't know what to do next, remember that your greatest task is not to struggle harder. Your greatest task is to remain faithful to the feeling of the life you have chosen. Let your inner world become so convincing that temporary appearances lose their power over you. Persist in peace. Persist in gratitude. Persist in certainty. Over time, what once existed only as an invisible feeling will begin to express itself in visible ways. The outer world cannot help but reflect the state you consistently occupy within. When you persist in the feeling instead of the struggle, you allow your life to unfold with a power that is both quiet and unstoppable. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that not everything valuable is immediately visible. We live in a world that encourages instant results. We plant a seed today and expect a tree tomorrow. We make one decision and hope every problem disappears overnight. When nothing seems to change, we assume that nothing is happening. Yet the greatest forces in life have always worked quietly before they become visible. A seed grows beneath the soil long before it breaks through the surface. The sunrise begins before the first ray of light reaches your eyes. In the same way, every meaningful transformation begins in the unseen. Just because you cannot observe it with your physical senses does not mean it is absent. The invisible often gives birth to everything that eventually becomes visible. This is why patience is not passive. It is an active expression of trust. It is the ability to remain calm while your desire is taking shape beyond what your eyes can currently confirm. Many people interrupt their own progress because they constantly dig up the seed they have planted. They imagine the life they want, then immediately question whether it is working. They feel inspired one day and discouraged the next. They move back and forth between faith and fear until uncertainty becomes their dominant state. But growth requires consistency. The unseen process unfolds best when it is allowed to develop without constant doubt pulling against it. Consider how often fear demands proof before it is willing to believe. It says, show me the evidence, and then I'll trust. But genuine faith works in the opposite direction. It says, I trust first, and the evidence will follow. This shift changes everything. Instead of allowing your circumstances to decide your emotional state begins to influence the circumstances you experience. You stop asking life for permission to feel confident. You choose confidence because you understand that your inner condition is the foundation upon which your outer reality is built. There will be days when nothing appears to move in your favor. You may face unexpected delays, disappointments, or moments when the path ahead seems more confusing than ever. During those moments, the temptation is to abandon the vision you have chosen. You may think that because you cannot see progress, there is no progress. Yet appearances are often misleading. What seems like a delay may actually be preparation. What feels like a closed door may be redirecting you towards something greater. The unseen process does not always unfold according to your timetable, but it unfolds according to the deeper order of the reality you have accepted within yourself. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast valley on a foggy morning. The fog hides the road ahead, but it does not erase the road. Every step you take reveals a little more of the path. Life often works the same way. You are not meant to see every detail before you begin. You are only required to trust enough to take the next step while remaining faithful to the destination already alive in your heart. Clarity is rarely given all at once. It grows as your confidence grows. The more you trust the unseen, the more the unseen begins to reveal itself. This trust also frees you from the exhausting habit of trying to control every outcome. You no longer feel the need to force every conversation, manipulate every opportunity, or calculate every possibility. Instead, you become attentive rather than anxious. You recognize that your responsibility is to maintain the inner state that matches your desired reality. The unfolding of events belongs to a greater intelligence than the restless mind can fully comprehend. When you stop interfering with fear and begin cooperating with faith, life often arranges circumstances in ways that surprise you. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Helpful people enter your path. Ideas come naturally. What once seemed impossible begins to unfold with remarkable ease. Trusting the unseen process does not mean becoming inactive. It means acting from confidence instead of desperation. Your actions become inspired rather than forced. You make decisions because they feel aligned with your inner certainty, not because you are trying to rescue yourself from fear. This creates a completely different experience of life. Instead of constantly wondering whether you are on the right path, you begin walking with quiet assurance, knowing that every step taken in faith has purpose, even if you cannot yet understand it. So whenever you find yourself asking, why hasn't anything changed? Remember that the deepest changes always begin where the eyes cannot see. Stay loyal to the vision you have accepted. Hold firmly to the feeling that your desired reality is already taking shape. Refuse to measure your future by today's appearances alone. The unseen process is always working, even in silence. Trust it. Nurture it with faith instead of doubt. And in the perfect moment, what has been growing invisibly within you will emerge into the visible world with a certainty that no obstacle can prevent. The greatest question you can ask yourself is not, what should I do next? But rather, who would I be if everything I desired were already true? Most people spend their lives searching for the perfect action while remaining the same person inwardly. They believe that changing their circumstances will change who they are. Yet the opposite is often the key to lasting transformation. Your circumstances naturally begin to reflect the person you consistently believe yourself to be. When your identity changes, your thoughts change, your emotions change, your expectations change, your decisions change, and as these inner changes accumulate, your outer world begins to mirror them. Every lasting success starts with becoming someone different long before the evidence appears. Imagine two people standing before the same opportunity. One is filled with doubt, constantly questioning whether they are capable or deserving. The other carries a quiet confidence, not because they know every answer, but because they trust themselves completely. Both face the same situation, yet they experience it in entirely different ways. One sees obstacles, the other sees possibilities. One hesitates, The other moves forward with calm assurance. The difference is not the opportunity itself. It is the identity from which each person is living. The outer event remains the same, but the inner state transforms its meaning. This is why the person you become matters far more than the circumstances you encounter. When you truly adopt the identity of someone whose desire has already been fulfilled, you stop thinking like the version of yourself who is still waiting. You no longer wake up wondering if life will ever change. Instead, you begin each day with the quiet expectation that your reality is already unfolding in your favor. Gratitude replaces desperation. Confidence replaces hesitation. Peace replaces constant mental struggle. This shift is subtle yet incredibly powerful. It is not an act of pretending. It is an act of accepting a new truth within yourself so completely that it begins to feel natural. What once required effort gradually becomes your normal way of being. Many people wait for success before allowing themselves to feel successful. They wait for abundance before feeling secure. They wait for love before feeling worthy. They postpone the very qualities that would naturally attract the experiences they desire. But if your emotional state depends entirely on external conditions, you will always remain at the mercy of circumstances. Real freedom begins when you choose your inner identity first. Decide today that you are already the person who is calm, confident, capable, and fulfilled. Live from that decision consistently. Speak from it. Think from it. Make your daily choices from it. Over time, what first felt like an intentional practice becomes your genuine nature. This new identity influences every area of your life. You begin speaking with greater certainty because uncertainty no longer defines you. You become more patient because you are no longer afraid of time. You notice opportunities that once escaped your attention because your expectations have changed. Even your relationships begin to shift as people often respond to the confidence and peace you quietly carry. Without forcing anything, your life starts reflecting the new assumptions you have accepted about yourself. The transformation does not happen because you manipulated the world. It happens because the world responds differently to the person you have become. There will still be moments when the old identity tries to return. A difficult situation may tempt you to think as you once did. Fear may whisper familiar stories of limitation and doubt. When that happens, do not become discouraged. Simply remember that every new identity is strengthened through repetition. Just as a path through a forest becomes clearer each time it is walked, your new way of thinking becomes stronger every time you choose it over old habits. Every moment of confidence replaces a moment of fear. Every act of faith weakens the influence of doubt. Little by little, your new identity becomes more familiar than the old one ever was. From this point forward, let your first response to uncertainty be different. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" ask, "How would the person I desire to become think, feel, and respond right now?" Then act from that answer. Let your decisions arise from your chosen identity rather than from temporary emotions. Trust that when your inner self is aligned with the life you wish to experience, your actions will naturally become wiser, your path will become clearer, and your opportunities will multiply in ways you could not have predicted. So if you truly don't know what to do, remember this final principle above all others: become the person who already knows. Become the version of yourself who walks with certainty instead of confusion, with peace instead of panic, and with unwavering faith instead of endless doubt. The moment you stop waiting to become that person and choose to be them now, you set in motion a transformation that begins within but cannot remain hidden. Your life will always rise to meet the identity you consistently embrace. Choose it wisely, live it faithfully, and allow the world to reflect the greatness that has been within you all along. If there is one truth to carry with you today, let it be this: you don't have to know every step before your life can change. You only need to become the version of yourself who already lives in the reality you desire. The outer world may take time to rearrange itself, but the moment your inner world changes, your future has already begun to shift. When confusion appears, don't let it define you. Instead, return to stillness. Return to faith. Return to the feeling that everything is already working in your favor. The answers you seek are not waiting somewhere outside of you. They are waiting for you to recognize them within. Every great transformation begins with an invisible decision, a decision to stop living from fear and start living from certainty, a decision to stop reacting to appearances and start creating from within. The moment you make that choice consistently, your life begins to move in ways you could never have predicted. So the next time you find yourself asking, "What should I do?" remember this: before changing your actions, change your state of being. Before searching for another path, become the person who has already arrived. Your world will always mirror the person you believe yourself to be. The future you desire is not as far away as it seems. It begins the moment you choose it within yourself. Make that choice today, hold on to it with unwavering confidence, and watch your life unfold in remarkable ways. Thank you so much for spending your time here today. I truly hope this message inspired you to look within and discover a deeper sense of confidence, clarity, and purpose. If you found value in this message, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who may need these words today, and subscribing for more inspiring content designed to help you transform your mindset and your life. Leave a comment below and tell us, what is one change you're choosing to make within yourself starting today? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, remember, your greatest power has always been within you. Trust it, live from it, and let it guide every step of your journey. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next